Zero, the site where the World Trade Center once stood, later today. This is the scene there live now. Well, a White House spokesman said last night that he wouldn't be making any speeches whilst there. Jay Carney was effectively saying he didn't want to be accused of showboating and said the emotional power of his presence spoke for itself. Well, as far as America is concerned, producing proof won't change the fact that al-Qaeda's leader is dead. President Obama believes publishing photos will only antagonise the Muslim world and could incite violence. But conspiracy theorists want closure. So, is it right to withhold evidence, or should the images be released? Shashank Joshi, an associate fellow at RUSI, believes the pictures should be shown. He joins us from central London, and with an opposing view here at Sky News Centre is Nabila Ramdani, a journalist who specialises in Islamic affairs. Very good afternoon to you both. Shashank Joshi, why should the pictures be released?
Well, for a lot of people in Pakistan at the present, it looks like the United States is saying, we launched an operation, killed Osama Bin Laden, and then dumped his body in the sea. Trust us on this one. And in a country where anti-Americanism and, of course, conspiracy theories have been rife over the past 10 years, that isn't going to cut it. And if we cast our mind back to 2003 and we see the Americans, we recall the release of the photographs of Uday and Qusay Hussein, Saddam Hussein's two sons, killed in a firefight. That did so much to persuade so many Iraqis that they were really dead, and it gave them a form of closure. So although some will be unpersuaded, this will go a long way towards correcting the false impression that Bin Laden has been either dead for a long time or is still alive and about somewhere.
Nabila Ramdani, why do you believe President Obama has done the right thing?
Well, President Obama has described the pictures as a grisly trophy, suggesting that his foreign policy is not about trophies, and that's exactly right. I mean, there is evidence that Bin Laden is indeed dead. The DNA tests proves it by 99.999%. And my point is that there will always be conspiracy theorists who will not believe that indeed Bin Laden is dead. And dare I say that the fuss over Obama's birth certificate proved it. Even after he showed the original of his birth certificate, a cast iron documentary proof of it, it didn't convince the people who do not want to be convinced.
Yes, Shashank, that's a valid point, isn't it? There will always be conspiracy theorists, whatever pictures or video is released, that will deny it, that they'll say, well, this has just been photoshopped, it isn't really Bin Laden.
I have considerable sympathy for that point of view. First of all, the release of President Obama's birth certificate was a terrible capitulation to conspiracy theorists and was a pretty sad moment in America's democracy, so that's entirely correct. But it's worth bearing in mind this doesn't have to be done as trophyism, and if it is, that would indeed be disastrous. That would be a terrible piece of public diplomacy. But I think photographs could be released with a statement expressing the spirit of sorrow and understanding of the damage that has been wrought in the region for the past 10 years in the pursuit of Mr. Bin Laden himself. I think it could be done in a sober manner that recognizes the seriousness of the issue without in any way suggesting America is cheering on anyone's grave or celebrating what is, at the end of the day, a very mixed feeling for many in the region who have suffered greatly in the course of that process.
Nabila, the move appeared to contradict the CIA director who said the photos would eventually be made public. This suggests a split amongst the president's inner circle itself.
Well, absolutely. What really tipped the balance is, in fact, the American military personnel imploring President Obama not to release the pictures, as it would put their lives in danger. And it would, because of the anger this would trigger. And so it is to protect American military personnel around the world that the Obama administration decided not to release this the pictures. And may I add that this idea that the release of the picture will bring closure to the Bin Laden story, or indeed will bring comfort to the bereaved, is absolutely disturbing. This is not how you deal with grief. You shouldn't add to barbarism, full stop.
Shashank Joshi, there is a concern by many, and certainly one cited by President Obama, that releasing the pictures would incite extremists to retaliate, putting troops at risk in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and also American lives everywhere in the world. Do you think that's a valid argument?
Well, partially. First of all, the threat of retaliation exists regardless. There are groups who will seek to avenge Osama Bin Laden's death regardless of whether photographs are released or not. Second, the American military does have a valid point that its troops need to be protected. It has a very large presence in Afghanistan, tens of thousands of troops, and elsewhere as well. And those could be at risk if people are inflamed or feel the need to take revenge. But I think the military is working on the basis that these would be perceived as a repeat of the Abu Ghraib prisoner scandal photographs showing American malfeasance. I think it's not necessarily like that. And again, I would just invoke the precedent of the killing of Uday and Qusay Hussein. These aren't necessarily going to be perceived as trophies. And if that's how they are released, then it's better they aren't released. But as I said, they could be released with the appropriate degree of soberness and, I think, reflection.
Nabila.
But Shashank, with all due respect, you're not addressing the why they shouldn't be released, you're addressing the how. You're talking about being sober and not being triumphalist about it. You're not addressing the why. But I think Obama is also concerned not only about the security of his military personnel, but also about his legacy. Does he want to go down in history as a tribal and insensitive president, which would make him come across as a tribal and insensitive as Muslim radicals around the world? And also what is at the moment a very successful operation in terms of foreign policy for America could potentially backfire massively if indeed the pictures were released. As I said, it would most definitely trigger the anger of radicals, Islamists around the world.
Shashank, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think this debate rests on certain differences in judgment that can't be resolved terribly easily. I agree, I am focusing on the how of release, but it's worth bearing in mind the Chief of Central Intelligence, Leon Panetta, is one of those within the White House who is arguing in favor of their release. And so, the debate within the White House is not a monolithic debate. There are those who clearly see a long-term interest in American national security through their release. Now, they could be wrong, but the judgment differs within the corridors of power as well.
Shashank Joshi and Nabila Ramdani, thank you very much for debating that issue with us here on Sky News. Well,